Grace O'Donnell, the director here at the Callahan Center. Thank you everyone for coming to today's presentation by District Attorney Marian Ryan. She has been the Middlesex County District Attorney since 2013, and she represents more than 54 cities and towns, so the largest county in all of Massachusetts. From her experience, she's learned that as important as prosecution is, prevention is equally important and has an even better outcome. She's a recognized expert on developing and creating innovative solutions that are defined by not simply getting involved after a crime, but also taking meaningful steps to stop a crime before it even happens. Prior to being named District Attorney, she served as the Massachusetts District Attorney Office's General Counsel and Chief of the Office of Elder and Disabled Unit, where she prosecuted crimes involving physical and financial abuse of the most vulnerable victims. In addition to responding to and investigating all instances of abuse and neglect of disabled and elderly persons, District Attorney Ryan has worked to ensure the safety of our elders by building partnerships and collaborations among service providers, nonprofits, hospitals, and elder protection agencies. District Attorney Ryan grew up in Somerville and is a summa cum laude graduate of Emmanuel College and a cum laude graduate of Boston College Law School. She's currently on the faculty of LaSalle College in Newton, where she teaches courses in constitutional law and American legal system. I'm going to turn it over to District Attorney Marian Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks, Grace. Thank you, and thank you for having me today. You know, one of the things that probably all of us at some point spend a few minutes thinking about is, what is government doing for me? Are people really looking out for me? What's going on with all the money we pay for certain things? And one thing we never want to take for granted, it is something that is an enormous asset to me as the district attorney, is what you have here in this room today. You know, we're fortunate. Nothing bad has happened. And yet, here in this room, you have the mayor, you have the police chief, you have the fire chief, all people who have very full plates. And yet, they've taken the time to be here today to talk about prevention, to talk about keeping you safe, to help you to put a name with a position so that you know if something happens, you have a place to turn here in Framingham. So you are very, very well served by the people you've put in these positions. And that is something that's not true across the country. It's not even true all over Massachusetts that we have the kind of relationships. I think I've seen the mayor 5 times in the last month. I've seen the chief about 12 times in the last month. And we've certainly had input and representation from the fire departments as well. And that's all for keeping people safe. And that's an enormous partnership that is helpful. And I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Spicer for a couple of minutes to just let her talk a little bit about her work, and then we'll let the chief say hello and we'll get going.
And this is going to be a very, very quick hello, because as always, I love coming to the Callahan Center. And I feel that Framingham, not only are we proactive in making sure that our seniors are safe and they're knowledgeable, and quite frankly, I love spending time with you because you push me to a whole new level, and you know, with your questions, your ideas, and I am very grateful for that. So part of me being here, I was a couple of weeks ago, DA Ryan was speaking to young people at Keefe Tech on safety and domestic violence, and I have to tell you, I walked out of there with a couple of new ideas, and that's also something that I need to look at too as your mayor. What are the things that I can do within this community to continue to keep us safe? So thank you for being here today, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing her tell us a little bit more about what we need to do to keep all of our residents in Framingham safer. Thank you. Chief, you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. Just delighted to be here. I want to thank DA Ryan again. This is a very, very valuable little workshop that she's going to present to you. It's good information. It's very timely. As I was waiting for this to get going, I had a couple words with Marian, and as I was driving home yesterday, I had a phone call from an individual. He lives in upstate New York, and his dad lives in Framingham, and he's 90 years old, and he was caught up in a scam, in a telephone scam. And so as you're sitting here and say, how can this happen to me? It's very easy. It's very easy, but you're gonna get some great information here. So, to keep yourself safe, keep other loved ones that you know safe, just cue into some of the little things that you're gonna learn today, and enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Just to touch on something that the Chief just mentioned, I always, when I talk about these things, like to give you very real examples of cases that we've been prosecuting, of things that have just happened. And very often when I do that, I can see people raise their eyebrows or kind of shake their head, thinking, how did somebody do something that foolish? And the answer to that lies a little bit in what we're going to talk about, which is how the bad guys get to be so successful at this. Right? So the Chief isn't going to listen while I teach you how you could commit some crimes. But it all really comes down to some very simple things. And once you think about it, because we all read in the newspaper about something that happened, and we think, how could someone do that? Well, they do it because just like you or I, they have a job. In their case, their job is separating you from your possessions. And they want to be good at it. And they work hard at it. And they keep up on the newest things that are out there. And they adjust for whatever is happening. That's how they do it. And they prey on you in particular circumstances. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is they prey on you when you are distracted. Distraction is the #1 cause of a lot of these crimes. Right? And before we talk about some of the traditional kinds of scams that people are thinking about, I want to talk about two things that continue to be the #1 kind of way that people are losing their possessions. People, particularly people who are over the age of 60. The very first, you might have seen, we charged somebody in Middlesex County this week, a man and a woman who have been traveling around the county, going into stores, and what are they doing? They are removing people's purses and wallets. How are they doing that? I guarantee you, if we went over to Whole Foods or we went to the Stop and Shop right now, right, we would see a lot of carts that have a purse in the basket. You're guilty. Right there. So, and why is that? Right? You go into the store, you got the 90-pound purse, the Mary Poppins bag, and I am the biggest offender. And you get busy, you want to get things off the shelf, you want to look at things, and you tuck it in there. And you think, I'm right with my cart. Nothing's going to happen. The way that we traditionally get those cases is somebody comes down, they lift your wallet out of your purse, they disappear out of the store. You have no idea. It's the security people up in the room upstairs who see them leave. They go chase them, they get your wallet, they come back and tap you on the shoulder, and you have no idea your wallet disappeared. That's how they usually come in. This latest pair that we charged this week is a little bit different scam. They're hanging out in the produce section, and they strike up a conversation with you. So you're in the produce section, and the woman, it's a man and a woman, and the woman says, have you ever used this kind of fruit? Do you know anything about this kind of lettuce? I'm worried about the romaine lettuce. They were striking up conversations, and everybody gets into that conversation, and everybody's going to add something about, I love cherry tomatoes, I use them all the time, whatever it is. You're having the conversation. While you're talking to her, he's lifted your purse and he's gone. So that is a totally preventable crime. Because think about it, when you go into the store, what do you really need? You need your cash or your credit cards. You need your list. Maybe you need your coupons. You don't need everything else. So if you don't bring it with you, you don't have to worry about it. So that's one piece where that distraction can be eliminated. The other piece, and one of the most dangerous places for people in terms of distraction and crime, is the parking lot, right? Because you go to the store. I always say I hate to grocery shop, because you have to touch the product way too much. You got to put it in the cart, you got to get the bags, you got to put the bags in the car, you got to take the bags out of the car. There's a lot of touching that goes on with that. And you are distracted while you are doing that. You're thinking about, first you get outside and you can't find your keys. So you're rummaging around looking for your keys. Then you get the car open and you're trying to figure out, do I put the breakable things on the floor? Am I putting something in the back of the car? All of that time, your purse is hanging off your shoulder. Or, and this is something that yesterday we had one of these because it was exactly the kind of weather. We live in a place where the weather is bad 6 months of the year, right? So you come out and your car has got, as it did yesterday, that icy little glaze on it. You're worried about getting the car cleaned off, getting the bags in the car. So what do? You open the front door. You might start the car, right? Sometimes you put the purse inside the car. Now you're around in the back. You got the doors open, the hatch up, whatever it is. Very, very simple. I'm the bad guy. I want to do what I do without getting on anybody's radar. You can't see me when I open that door and I take your purse out. And off I go. Same thing at a gas pump. You get to the gas station, you're going to pump your gas, you're thinking about, am I on the right side for the tank? Have I got my credit card? What am I doing? You're in and out. Very, very easy for somebody to open that door, take your wallet that you left in the console, take your purse, off they go. The other problem is, in a parking lot, I can tell you 100 times, if somebody tries to take your bag, let it go. It's not worth getting hurt over. If I walk up behind any one of you and grab on your bag, what are you instinctively going to do? Pull back, right? I can tell you that if you see your car being driven away from you, all right, my 92-year-old father-in-law, he was at the Home Depot, perfectly in possession of his faculties, perfectly able to drive. He was buying wood. Brought the wood out to the parking lot, started the car, bad day, started clearing the windows, opened the back of the car. He's in the back of the car and he, very precise, wanted to put that wood in so it wouldn't roll all over the back of the car. He's busy putting the wood in the back hatch of the car and suddenly his car is driving away from him. All right, the car was running, the door was unlocked. It looked like, please take me. He's chasing after the car. As I pointed out, what exactly were you planning to do if you caught up to the car? All right? But herein lies two problems. First of all, it's dark at 4 o'clock now. So you start running in that parking lot because it's an instinct. You're going to follow that car. You're going to follow the guy who took your wallet. You either are likely to encounter those little barriers, the concrete barriers that you drive up to, those yellow things. We have had a half dozen examples of people breaking a hip or a head injury because I'm watching the bad guy and I'm going as fast as I can. I don't even see that I fly over, right? Or the other thing is I'm busy watching the bad guy who's got my things and I don't see the car that's trying to pull into the space. You know, I'm zigging and zagging through those parking spaces. So again, distraction. One of the saddest cases I ever prosecuted, a 65-year-old woman was on her way home from work. 5:30 in the evening, she stopped at the grocery store, got her groceries. It was one of those days like yesterday when there was some slick sidewalk. The car was covered with a glaze. She came out into the parking lot. She opened the driver's side door, turned on the defrosters to get the windows cleared off. She opened the back driver's side door. So she was in that little alley between her two doors, lifting her bag. She only had a few things, picking her bags up, putting them in the back seat. Guy ran by, grabbed her purse. She had $3 in her purse. She pulled, he pulled, the strap broke. She slid right under her own car. Distraction. So think about those pieces. You know, before you walk out of the store, have your keys in your hand. Know where you're going to put the bags. lock the doors behind you. Very, very simple ways to protect yourself. Now let's talk a little bit about the seasonal piece. One of the scams that is going on everywhere, and I predict, because they're saying it's going to snow on Sunday, that we'll have a big outbreak of it on Friday, is people are getting phone calls saying you owe a lot of money to your heating company, whatever your heating company is, the gas company, the oil company, whatever it is. Friday afternoon, you owe a lot of money. If you don't pay within the next hour or so, we're going to shut your heat off. Now, one of two things is true. Either you know your bills are all paid, you don't have a problem, but it's almost 4 o'clock and it's going to be hard to straighten that out. Or maybe things are a little hard right now and you've fallen a little bit behind on the bill and you start to panic because you start envisioning you're going to freeze all weekend, pipes are going to freeze, bad things are going to happen. But the bad guy always has an offer for you, which is go get some gift cards, right? Go get those gift cards. And what they're going to ask you to do is if you look in the back of a gift card, there's a little place that looks like the scratch ticket. It's a little silver swipe that you can scratch off. They will ask you to get the gift cards, scratch that off, and tell them the number. When you do that, they instantly have the value of that card. You don't have to physically part with that card at all. So if you had a gift card right now to Dunkin' Donuts or whatever it was, you gave me that number, I can use that card. You'll have the card, I'll have the value. So two really important pieces, and it's one of those things that as we're all sitting here, and I say to you that over the last month or so, we've had about $60,000 across the county that people have paid to their bogus heating source. $60,000. Right? And everybody thinks I would never do that. I would never, ever go get that credit card and do that. But they do. Why? Because if we were sitting here and someone called you and told you to do that, you would probably tell the person sitting next to you or talk to somebody about it. And as you said it out loud, you would hear how silly it sounded, that you were going to pay the gas company by going and getting gift cards at CVS. But they take advantage of the fact that they don't call you when you're here. They call you when you're home alone. They call you when you feel squeezed for time. It's late on Friday afternoon. What am I going to do? I won't be able to get anybody over the weekend. Snow's coming. I got to have the heat on. And all of a sudden, it seems to make sense. Right? I'll give you a perfect example. We spend a lot of time working with the retailers about the sale of gift cards. You know, if you want to go buy whatever gift cards you want to buy, that's your business. But what we know is that anybody who calls you up and says, buy a gift card, I 110% promise you that is a scam. There is no legitimate enterprise that involves buying gift cards. So you will see, because we've worked hard with those retailers to make people just think about it. If you go into one of the pharmacies today, Walgreens or CVS or whatever, and you buy a gift card, when you bring the gift card to the register, before you can complete that transaction, you will see on the little pad there, the little keypad, the two questions will appear for you to answer. The first question is, do you understand that you're voluntarily buying this card? And you have to punch in yes in order for it to continue. And the second question is, do you understand that as soon as you buy it, that amount is charged to your credit card? That you've essentially lost the money. And the reason for that is our hope is that in actually thinking about it, you will realize, yeah, maybe I don't want to buy this gift card. Maybe you'll have a conversation with the person behind the counter. We recently had a woman, financially sophisticated, absolutely in possession of her faculties, walk into the Apple store at the Burlington Mall. She asked the clerk for 4 $1,000 gift cards. Right? Now, she did not look like she was about to set up a tech workshop. So he said, you know, and she has a right to buy anything, but he said, just making conversation with her, these wedding gifts, could I wrap them for you? Trying to get her to talk a little bit about why she was buying them. And at first, she didn't have much to say. And he was kind to her, and he asked her a few more questions. And she finally broke down and said, I'm buying these because I got a call today from the IRS. I owed $3,700 in back taxes. And they told me the federal marshals would arrest me if I didn't get these gift cards. Now, think about what that really says, right? There's a lot going on in the government right now, but the government, I promise, is not running on Apple gift cards. I feel safe saying that. But this was a woman who did not lack in intelligence or sophistication, who just got so frightened, and nobody really knows, right? Maybe you did make a mistake on your taxes. Got so frightened at the prospect that she hadn't paid, or that the marshal would show up at the door and she'd be embarrassed, that she ran out to get those cards. So that's one piece, is just to anybody that you get a call for, anytime you're thinking about parting with money, as the chief said, the man who was going to send the $8,800 the other day here in Framingham, take a moment. The most important thing is to get yourself off that phone for a little bit and really think through what somebody said to you. You will see how crazy it sounds before you act on that. Call somebody that you trust about that, because they rely on frightening you and making you feel pressured. You know, the other kind of call is the call you get that something is about to happen to your bank account or your credit card in the next 2 hours if you don't do something. And you get flustered. And all of a sudden, you are doing something. And they are good, because there's always a piece of truth. So one of the scams that's going around all over the place right now, in addition to that heating scam, is, as you know, one of the places where, up until now, one of the few places where your Social Security number has continued to be is on your Medicare card. Even though we changed it on a driver's license and whatever, your Social Security number has been on your Medicare card. Everybody is getting a new Medicare card with that scrambled number. It's going to take 3 years, because they're doing them by people's birthdays. So the call that people are getting is, this is Social Security. You're getting a new Medicare card. So that's true. So you know that. You start feeling like, yep, I'm aware of that. And we just need to check your Social Security number. And people give the Social Security number. Or we just want to confirm that your Social Security number is 02046, and you say, no, it's 103296. And suddenly you've given out that Social Security number. They took what you knew was a little bit of truth, and they turned it into something that caused you to give up that information. Now, the important thing about that, 2 important things are, first, you don't want to obviously be doing that. But secondly, if you do get confused, if in the moment you give out that number, please do not be embarrassed about it. And please do not think nothing bad is going to happen, because something bad will happen. Call the police department. Call the senior center, because we can help you to shut down your accounts, to do what you need to do. You do not want to wait until the $5,000 disappears from your bank account. Because as the chief and I know, even in the best case, when we prosecute these cases, we find who did it, the likelihood of getting your money back is very, very low. The other concern when the weather is bad is the people that show up at your door, and they're happy to remove your snow, clear the snow off your roof, cut down your trees, do whatever needs to be done. Right? A very simple rule of thumb is, you should not conduct contractual business, because that's what it is when you're agreeing to pay somebody for those things, at your front door. the odds that somebody who appears at your door without you having called is going to successfully do a good job for the right price is about 1%. And if you have in your mind, I'm never going to deal with anybody that shows up at the front door, you don't have to sort through, do I feel like doing this? Because when they show up and they say to you, as they do, I was just over on the next street, I've got some extra whatever, sand, solution, extra time to cut your trees, please let me do it for you. That is not true. You do not want to do business with them. And two important pieces about that. One is, it violates another rule, which is when you are home in your house, what protects you from the people outside is the door of your house. Once you open the door of your house, unless you're prepared to physically eject somebody who doesn't want to leave, you have compromised your safety. Because once they're in, how are you getting them out? I'll give you an example. We just had, after that storm in October, we had that bad windstorm in October that knocked down all the trees. We had a woman in not too far from here who legitimately had trees damaged on her property. She knew she had 4 or 5 trees that needed some kind of work. All of a sudden, man shows up at her front door, says exactly what I just said. I was working over there. I saw your trees. You know, it's been a terrible storm. Chat, chat, chat. I can do everything you need done here. She thinks, great. I know I need the trees fixed. Solution at my front door. She agrees. He and his buddy go to work. They actually cut down whatever needs to be done, do what needs to be done to the trees. The two of them appear at her kitchen door. One of them is helpfully carrying a chainsaw. They are now in her kitchen. They tell her the price of the work they just did is $5,800. She's shocked. They're very, very forceful about it. That's what we charge. It's X dollars an hour. We were out there. We did whatever. You didn't ask us what we were going to charge you. She was very, very intimidated. She's got these 2 big guys. She's alone. One's got a chainsaw. And they're demanding $5,800. Now, she was smart. She did what we tell people all the time to do, which is your safety comes first. She wrote the check for $5,800. She gave them the check for $5,800. She ushered them out the door, locked the door, and called the police. All right, so she got rid of that threat. But the other piece of what we see with those checks is, remember, if you write me a check and you bank at Citizens Bank, you give me a check and I bank at Bank of America. So I go to Bank of America and I deposit that check. It's going to take about 3 days for it to come back to Citizens. During that time, you can stop payment on the check. If you give me the check from Citizens and I go to Citizens and cash that check, your money's gone. She called the police department, told them the story, told them her bank. They went to the branch of her bank. There were our 2 friends, within minutes, already cashing the check. So again, your safety comes first. But once you let somebody in the house, that's a problem. The second is, if you do whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe, do not hesitate to immediately call the police, because that is our best shot of getting your money back. The other piece is, now remember, you're the bad guy, right? Even most bad guys can figure out that if it's 6 o'clock at night, 2 big guys come to your door, you might not let them in. That's why it's often a woman who comes to the door, or even more tugging on your heartstrings, it's a child. We just had a woman the week between Christmas and New Year's, 6:30 at night, it's dark out, doorbell rang. She went to the door, she had the little glass panels by the door. She looks out, there's a child outside. It's not the kind of place where kids would normally be walking around. Open the door, 2 people right behind that child. Right? Somebody comes to the door. Now, she was legitimately worried about that child. Call the police. You are not bothering the police. They would rather have you call them and come out and it's someone selling Girl Scout cookies than that there's a problem. Okay? So keep in mind that door is what protects you. You shouldn't be doing business on the threshold anyway, and you certainly shouldn't be opening the doors to people who are coming in. The other scam that sort of focuses on the season is, you may have seen, you've probably gotten them right now, they're going around all over the place, they're pink. You see in your mailbox or in your door, there's a little pink flyer, and it says, if you need your chimney cleaned or your furnace cleaned, special, you know, this is a $250 value, $99, they'll come out and clean your furnace, clean your chimney. Right? Again, keep in mind that rule. You need a service, you should initiate that. Because what's happening is, we all love a bargain. Sure, for $99 I can get the chimney cleaned. You previously weren't aware your chimney needed any cleaning, but it sounds like a good idea. You call up, they come. I actually had this happen to me. I called my heating company, and a guy I didn't know came out. He went downstairs, and he was banging and clanging away at my furnace. And then what they do is they come up and they show you something. And this doohickey of whatever it is has to be replaced. He's in my kitchen saying, this, you see this is carbon encrusted, this needs to be fixed, right? You don't know whether it does or it doesn't. You don't know what that is. If it's your chimney, you're certainly not going up to check, and it's going to cost you now $500. And fortunately, they have one in the truck. And you have no idea, even if you pay the $500, whether they replace it, because you don't know what it was to begin with. All right? He was very persistent. And I finally fell back on that. I think my husband needs to look at that. And he finally sort of gave up. But that's the risk you take. They pull you in with that bargain, and then it's not such a bargain because they leave $1,700 later. And you also don't know how well they did putting back together what they took apart. So those are some of the seasonal things. I want to talk a little bit about 2 other things, one of which is the scam that is probably the most prevalent right now. It is the scam that I find the most distasteful because it takes advantage of your emotions and it tugs on the feeling that everybody has for their grandchildren, and that's that grandparent scam. You've probably heard a little bit about it. It's the one that when I talk about it, people say, really, who would ever do that? Literally hundreds of people all over the place. And it also is a good illustration, though, of what, unfortunately now, we mean when we talk about you keeping your personal information safe. Because when I say that, what people think about is your social security number, your bank account numbers, all of that. The grandparent scam thrives because it uses information that is true. And there's 2 variations. The first one is when you have younger grandchildren, you get the call that says, we know your granddaughter is playing hockey this afternoon at the rink at 3 o'clock. Unless you leave $500, $1,500, pick a number, in a bag, in a certain place, by 12 o'clock, something bad is going to happen. Do not call the police. Do not call the child's parents. You're frightened. You're obviously worried about your grandchild. And most importantly, you're pulled in because if you got that call and you only had grandsons, you would have hung up. Okay? The second variation, which is almost worse because it's a little harder to kind of get your head around, is you get the phone call and it goes something like this. This is Marian Ryan. I'm a lawyer out in Colorado. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but your grandson, Michael, who's at the university, was stopped by the police last night. He had drugs in his car. He's horribly embarrassed. He said, please don't call my mom and dad. Call Nana, call Grandpa, ask them for the bail money. And we need $3,000, $5,000, whatever it is, by 3 o'clock this afternoon. Please go get cash and send it to this address. Like the gift cards, anything that involves cash in an envelope is going to end badly for you. And yet, people run out and they get that money and they send it off. Sometimes people are smart enough to say, well, that doesn't sound like Michael. What happened? Well, I'm going to let you speak to the police chief. And a male gets on the phone. Yes, this is Chief Trask. Yeah, we're sorry to tell you, Michael was driving a car. There were 3 kids in the car, and there was a bag of cocaine under the front seat. No. It doesn't mean necessarily he was using it, but he was driving the car and he had it. Sometimes people demand to speak to their grandchild. And a voice comes on the phone, and there's a lot of crying and sniffling. You can hardly make out that it's your beloved grandson. Nana, it wasn't my fault. A kid on my floor asked me to give him a ride. I didn't know he had the drugs. Suddenly, the $3,000 is on its way. The next call you get is, thank you so much. This is Marian Ryan again. Thank you for the bail money. Now, we've managed to get him released on bail, but you know, he is kicked out of school for right now, and he's going to have to stay at the hotel. Could you please send $2,500 for that? Off we go. And it continues. We just charged somebody who, in a situation where a man had lost almost $80,000, piece by piece. I was out doing this talk a few weeks ago when someone in the audience stood up, somebody who owned a business in the community, very financially sophisticated, to say that she and her husband had sent over $100,000. Okay? And it is because the circumstances they describe are true for you. You do have a grandson named Michael. He does go to the University of Colorado. That's why you do it. So the question is, and as you heard, I spent a long time before I was the DA running our unit looking at these scams and trying to figure out what was the connection. Because what's different about this scam is, you know, the phone calls about, do you want to buy computer service? Do you want to play the lottery? Do you want to do all of those things? Those are random. Everybody gets those calls. What is pretty unique about the grandparent calls are, we, I am sure, all know people who, if their grandchild's life really did depend on it this afternoon, don't have $500. They just don't. Those people never get a call. We have hundreds and hundreds of people who report to us either they got the call and they paid, or they got the call and they knew enough not to send the money. It is never people who couldn't afford to send the money. So what's the link? How do they know? How do they make that connection? And we looked for a long time, and I am convinced, and this is my opinion based on what they know, that it somehow has to do with some medical facility. Because think about this. Remember, you're a bad guy now, all right? I work at a medical facility, whatever it is, hospital, doctor's office, clinic, blood lab, whatever. What do I know about you? Everything. I obviously know your name. I know where you live. Now, maybe I'm from Framingham, and I know that the particular street you live on is a very nice street. You live on that street, you've got a very nice house. And if I don't know that, and if you haven't ever done this, find a 12-year-old who will do it perfectly, and Google Earth your house. All right? If you Google Earth your address, it is so good now. Not only can you perfectly see your house, you can see the kind of cars you have in the driveway. You can see the kind of landscaping of your house. So I look, you have a lovely home, perfectly maintained, 2 nice new SUVs in the driveway. can kind of figure out whether you have $500. I also know what you did for a living. So maybe you were a Framingham public school teacher. Got a nice steady pension, that's what I know. Maybe you owned a big business. Probably have $500 or $1,000. I also know what kind of insurance you have. Are you just a Medicare patient, or do you have that pricey Medicare supplement? That tells me a little bit. All right? And then think about, and I really challenge you to do this, the next time you're over at Metro West or you're at Emerson or the doctor's office, think about if you were a bad guy and you were looking for personal information. And I suggest to you, here's things you would hear. You go in and you see the doctor. And the doctor says, okay, I want to see you in 3 weeks. So you now come out, you're talking to the people who make the appointments. Doctor wants to see me in 3 weeks. And the person says, okay, what about February 2nd? No, I can't do February 2nd because really it's a good thing. You know, my sister and I are going to fly out to see my nephew who's at the university. All right? Or, no, I can't do it that weekend because my granddaughter Julia is getting married in Texas. All right? A lot of information. Not only did the person behind the counter hear that, but everybody over here heard that. Think about when you're sitting in the waiting room at the dialysis clinic or the blood lab or whatever. What do people do? They strike up conversation, right? We all do that. I always say I was a total failure in giving this information out because my 87-year-old father had 12 grandchildren. He's extraordinarily proud of them. If you sat beside my father on any of the many days of the week when he might have been at some medical appointment, you sat beside him for 5 minutes. You knew the names of every one of those 12 kids. You knew where they went to school. You knew what sport they played. There was nothing you did not know. And helpfully, he would have reported it all in his Irish whisper, so if anybody didn't hear it over there, they got it. All right? Sit in a hospital lobby for 20 minutes and listen to what you hear. And think about it if you were thinking about using that information. You can have a whole basket load for free. Think about Facebook, right? The police, we see at the police departments all the time. Someone comes in and says, I went away last weekend. I didn't tell a soul. My house was broken into. You go on Facebook. Here we are, off to Disney World. Well, here's a real piece of information. The bad guys use Facebook too. So when Michael got into the University of Colorado and he posted those photos that everybody posts with the sweatshirt from the school they're going, Grammy, I'm so excited. Literally a 12-year-old can figure out who Grammy is. So when we talk about your personal information, it means all those things. It doesn't mean you shouldn't talk to people. It doesn't mean you don't strike up those conversations. They really don't need to know the kids' first names. They don't need to know what school they go to. Or you get the phone call. This is often a common denominator for the people who've been scammed. Several weeks before they get scammed, they get a phone call that goes something like this. Hello? Oh, hi. This is Jimmy Jones. I'm sure you don't remember me. I grew up down the street from you. I played ball with your kids. You don't really remember Jimmy Jones at all, but you don't want to be rude. Oh, was that Michael or Tommy you played with? Tommy. Oh, I'm trying to put together a little group of us seeing each other. And this is the number I had for Tommy. Oh, well, Tommy doesn't live here anymore. Tommy's married. He lives over in Natick. Oh, he's married. That's great. Does he have any kids? Yes, he has twins. They're 7. All right? You chat. I'm the bad guy. It's not really very hard for me to figure out where 7-year-old kids would be going to school in Natick. Now you get the phone call that says your 7-year-old twin grandchildren have a holiday concert tomorrow evening. That's true. Put the money out or something will happen. It's not because they magically know that. They looked online and saw that the elementary schools are having their holiday concert next week in Natick. Pretty good guess. Pretty good guess. And yet, it's that truth that is what draws you in. So just be careful about that information. Be careful about that distraction. Be careful in particular about your cell phone. You know, when people talk on their cell phone in public now, they think they're in a phone booth that's traveling around them, all right? I don't know how many times over the holidays I was behind people in lines. Now, we're all trying to multitask, but they're on the phone. They're obviously, I've been on the other end of these calls as a daughter, so I know how this goes. They're obviously talking to their son or daughter who says, I'm going to pick up the holiday gifts for the kids for you. Okay, yeah, that's great. Let me give you my credit card number. And they're giving the credit card number. I want to tap them on the shoulder and say, I can hear you. And they're just oblivious to it. Or you're trying to make an appointment, or you're ordering some tickets, and you know, you're on hold for half a year. So you don't want to hang up, and then you're giving out that number. Because remember the critical piece about your credit card, and this is where people get scammed all the time. If I go into the store and I want to use your credit card, I need to physically have the credit card. If I want to go online or call up and order things, all I need are the numbers. That's why so many restaurants have gone to those little handheld things to swipe your credit card so that your credit card doesn't disappear. Because if I write down the number, I can call LLB and order $1,500 worth of stuff. They don't have to see the credit card. Right? I got a call recently, my own credit card, saying that I was buying $900 of video games in the Bronx. I was in Woburn, and my credit card was in my purse. But obviously, somebody picked up that number. And one of the places that you're most likely, and I know where I lost mine, is be careful when you use your credit card, particularly if you have any trouble putting your credit card into the slot. You know, you go to the gas pump or something, because what people do is they use a skimmer, just a little device they slide in there. You put your card in. When you pull it out, they come back and take that skimmer out. They've gotten your number off that skimmer. So you are likely to be vulnerable to that in a place where you have trouble using the card. You are very likely to be vulnerable in a place where there is a standalone ATM. So you know, sometimes you go to a restaurant, they don't take credit cards, they have the ATM in the front. Those are very dangerous, because an ATM in the bank, they check them every morning to make sure there are no skimmers. Those kind of things that are in the convenience store or a restaurant, they're not being checked. You are also very likely to be vulnerable if you use your card at a bank ATM over the weekend, especially on Sundays, because every day the bank opens, the bank checks the machines. What has happened in a number of cases, the bank is open on Saturday, they check the machine on Saturday, maybe they close at noon, somebody comes in, it takes a second to put the skimmer in there, and they also stick a little eyeball camera on the wall behind you. So now you use your card, the skimmer captures the number, you press in your password, that camera over your shoulder captured the number you put in. They come back Sunday night, they take the skimmer out, take the camera down. When the bank checks the machine on Monday, there's no sign of anything. So try to make your transactions on days the bank is open. If you're in there, you know, kind of do a handover, you're putting in your code, your number. Be careful, even people getting too close to you when you're punching in your passwords. It's pretty easy to figure that out. So those are ways that without even thinking about it, you're just, again, you're sort of distracted. You're just doing what you're doing. People don't typically go in, or you go in and it jams a little bit. You're just happy when you get it to work. You're not thinking about the fact it jammed because there's a skimmer in there. Particularly gas pumps. You go to a gas pump and you have trouble putting it in, I'd go to another pump or I'd go to another station. because the likelihood is there's a skimmer in there. So hopefully what you learn from this, and what I especially hope that you take to other people, because you're fortunate enough to be here, we can talk about this. I'm sure you all know people that because of their medical condition or family responsibilities or something are not out and about. They are even more vulnerable often because they are frequently in their house by themselves. And that talking on the phone is something that's a little bit of a respite, and they get in those conversations and they become very easy to lead into sending these things off. But distraction is the #1 cause of people doing this. Also, just before you think about sending money, gift cards are always going to end badly. Cash in an envelope is going to end badly. If you're thinking of doing some kind of transaction, which I suggest you not do with somebody at the door, talk to somebody else before you do that. Say out loud what you're thinking about doing. And most importantly, don't be embarrassed. People don't want their children to know. They feel foolish themselves that they've given the money away. It's important to stop the money going out. And the quickest way to do that is to reach out to the police, reach out to folks here at the Senior Center. We can help you. You are certainly not the first, and unfortunately won't be the last person to do that. So don't let your pride get in the way of making that report. So thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you.